The time is yours.
Terima kasih, Pak Dedi. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
As Director of Universitas Bunghatta, I would like to welcome our eminent speakers, namely Associate Professor Ahmad Mahmud from University of Sydney, Australia, Professor Dr. Setiono Sugiharto from Unika Atmajaya, Jakarta, and Professor Dr. Hendra Suherman from Universitas Bunghatta, Padang. I would also like to welcome all university staff and our beloved students, as well as all participants for their valuable participation in this international webinar on writing a research and conceptual article for international journal, techniques, and strategies. As we all know, the success of any academic institution relies not only on teaching, but also, and more importantly, on quality research and publication in well-known international peer-reviewed journals. Publication allows not only an institution to do well in ranking, but it also allows researchers to improve their knowledge and build a strong and reliable network of peers. The lack of proper training on research and publication techniques and strategies is among the difficulties faced by researchers in several universities in Indonesia. So, therefore, this webinar is the perfect platform to remediate this shortcoming. The theme of this webinar is very crucial to our university, as it would encourage and enable our lecturer to conduct research based on international standard and publish the result of the studies in reputed international journals. I hope that everyone makes the best of this event. Congratulations to the organizing committee for the effort in making this webinar possible. Thanks for Diana, Dr. Diana Citra, and also Dr. Yusrita Yanti. I hereby declare this conference officially open. Thank you for your kind attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, before we end the opening section, let me take a picture together. So all of the participants, please activate the camera and show the greatest smile. Okay, maybe all of the participants, please activate the camera because we will take a picture together. All right.
Okay. There are 6. Yeah.
1, 2, 3, and so the greatest smile. For the next slide, once more. 1, 2, 3, smile. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's all of the opening section. I'm Dedi Irawan as the Master of Ceremony. Say thank you for your attention. After this, we move to the main section of this webinar. The discussion section will be led by Mem Tami Tamrin, PhD. For Mem Tami Tamrin, PhD, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Dedi. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The Honorable Bapak Rektor Universitas Bunghatta, Profesor Dr. Tabdil Husni, SMBA. The Honorable Vice Rector 1 for the Academic Affairs, Bapak Rector 2 for the Finance and Financial Affairs, and Ibu Yana Citra Hasan as the Head of English Department, Ibu Dr. Yusriti Dayanti as the Honorable Chief Editor, Cultural Lingua Journal. Our special speakers, Associate Professor Dr. Ahmad Mabo. Welcome to Bunghatta University again, Ahmad. Profesor Setiono Sugiharto. Selamat pagi, Pak Setiono. And Professor Hendra Suherman from Bunghatta University. Distinguished guests, participants, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I would like to welcome you all to this our webinar series about writing a research and conceptual article for international journal Technique and Strategy held by English Department of Faculty of Humanities, Universitas Bunghatta. My name is Tami Tamrin. I will be your moderator today. In this occasion, we shall have outstanding presentation from our prominent presenters, whom I believe shall enrich our insight and knowledge regarding the theme of this webinar. Before presentation begin, allow me to introduce the presenters. Our first presenters only first, and then the next one I let Ahmad present the presentation, and then later I will also read the CV of the second presenter. First presenter, Associate Professor Ahmad Mahbub from the University of Sydney. Dr. Ahmad Mahbub earned his PhD at Indiana University, Bloomington in 2003. The title of his dissertation was Status of Non-Native English Speakers as ESL Teachers in the United States. Ahmad is keenly interested in the application of language sciences to development issues. His primary research interest is on an examination of policies, practices, and implication of language variation in local and global context. In pursuing this goal, Ahmad drew from the contribute to a range of linguistic and applied linguistic tradition, theories, and methodologies. In 2019, Dr. Ahmad Mahbub was named as Australia Research Field Leader, English Language and Literature in the Australian Research Magazine. Dr. Ahmad has already published books, lots of books, edited 9 books, writing 50 book chapters, published 37 journals, as editor of 7 journals, keynote speakers in many conferences, published many articles in newspaper and magazine, doing research report and many more publications. Please correct me if I'm not correct, Ahmad. Okay, for the first time, I would like to welcome our first presenter, Associated Professor Ahmad Mahbub, will deliver a presentation. Time is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for being here. Thank you all of my colleagues here, those who are in administrative positions, those who are in teaching and research positions, and those who are training to become researchers and teachers or other members of our community. So thank you again for taking time out to be here. Now, I realize that this is actually quite an important event because you're launching a new journal. Now, why do we launch a new journal? We launch a new journal, there must be a reason, right? Why would we want to put in so much time and energy and money into doing something? we must believe it's a good thing. And I can hear that from your speeches this morning that we are doing something good. I agree that we are, but I also have a fear that we are misguided and misdirected in how we are doing it. So hopefully in the session today, I will be able to challenge some of the ways in which we are currently thinking of creating research papers and journals and going to suggest alternative ways of doing them and why we need to think of these alternative ways. Now, before I actually start my presentation, I just sent a link through the chat group. It's an art essay that I published only about a week ago. And it's called Regaining Balance, Rethinking Knowledge Making. Now, in this essay, it's a very short essay, about 1,500 words, and it includes a poem. You were talking to me about my publications, and I was sort of giggling. You know, it's really interesting. I'm not very, it's like books and things I'm never really interested in after a long time. My publications that I get most excited about are the poetry. Because they just capture a different audience in a different way. So the essay includes a poem to help us think about and conceptualize some of the things that we are talking about here today in different ways. Because in many contexts, academic ways of using language are very restricted and very restrictive in what we can talk about and how we can talk about it. So because of those restrictions of the genre, we are trapped by the genres. And so sometimes it's better to escape those genres and write differently. So for you guys who are setting up a new journal, I think your journal would be a great place. It actually accepts and recognizes diversity, a diversity in the ways in which people do research and present research, not necessarily the ways that are, deemed as being quality by a certain group of academics, usually based out of North America or Europe or some Western context. And they are the rule setters or the trend setters, and everybody is expected to follow them, right? So that's why you're thinking a Scopus review. Why? Because the Scopus is what's ranked. So you can see how these ranking systems that are not our creation, we don't create these ranking systems. We are not part of much in making of these ranking systems. These are made somewhere else by somebody else. But we have to follow them, of course, because we are not making them. They're not necessarily designed for us. And so often we get trapped into this notion that we have to meet all these criteria. And in this criteria, one of the criteria, as you will know, of course, is journals and publishing journals. And I understand that's why people want to publish journals. In addition, you don't want to publish a journal, but you want it to be indexed, Scopus indexed, ISI indexed, whatever the index is. You want it indexed. Why? Because it's a ranking measure. Why? Because it's a ranking measure. Why? Because ranking matters. Ranking. That's the real reason why we are doing research. Let's not, none of us would be doing research if it was not required by our jobs. None of us would be doing research if it was not required by our institution. If we did not have any carrots, if we didn't know that after we do this research, we will get a PhD and we will get a job, or after I finish this research paper and get it published in an ISI journal, then I will get so many dollars or so many currency of some kind. You have carrots. We are being driven by carrots, and the carrots are either ranking or money. Those are the carrots that are driving us to creating and establishing these new kind of journals. I would like us to take a pause here and ask us, is that ethical? Is that an ethical thing to be doing? Yes, it is getting us into a rat race, but the rat race is taking us nowhere, right? The essay that I shared, I've just shared the link, it questions how European academia makes knowledge, all of it. It doesn't matter which discipline, whether it is sciences or social sciences, it makes no difference. They all create knowledge in exactly the same way. I've explained that in this essay, and I've explained why they do it, and I've explained what the consequences are. So if we continue to produce the kind of knowledge which does not bring benefits to our communities, now we know that, we don't need to name any places, but we have all been to places where we wonder, how can people live here? It's so noisy, it's so dirty, there's so much pollution, the water is not clean, there is crime, there's so much oppression, the police is so strict, hundreds of different reasons. But we have been to these places and some of us live in those places. And we must ask ourselves, how is the knowledge that we are creating? How is the work that we are doing? The number of hours, I am not going to even question the amount of work you do. I know that you guys work much harder than perhaps I do. I live in the bush, which is, I'm actually right now, if I show you outside the window, it's kind of, it's very windy, so I'm not outside, but I'm actually in Cooktown. And I am doing this talk from my motorhome. So this is where I live. So this is my home, and I live in my motorhome, and I live in the bush. And that's why I go by the name Prof. Nomad. And I learn from nature and observation of the nature. And I living in the bush for a long time makes you realize how the cities and the kind of knowledge that we make in urban universities, without understanding the world, basing our writing, basing our research on only research papers, readings only reading and reading and reading and creating, thinking we are creating new knowledge. Well, if you come out, you will see that we're not creating new knowledge. We are destroying the natural world. We are destroying it. You can, we don't have to be rocket scientists to understand that, you know, over the last 300 years, so-called scientific revolution of different types. Please don't turn on the presentation yet. Please don't turn on the PowerPoint. Can you please cancel the PowerPoint? I will turn it on when I need to.
But Temi, I think, yeah, Ahmad asked you to
I will do it when I'm ready. I'm not ready there.
Okay.
Yeah,
oh,
sorry.
I see.
I'm
So
just
still,
before we get there, right? I'm
Okay.
giving you the context. So this is the context in which this journal is being set up. We are in a particular context. We are at a particular point in time where we are seeing the oppression is increasing. You know, in the past, I loved coming to Bunghatta. I loved the food there. You know, I loved spending time with all of you and with nature. But notice we cannot do that anymore. Our mobility is constrained. With the mobility constraint, we will have even more dependency on somebody else giving us the knowledge. We are dependent on knowledge of others. We are dependent on the categories of knowledge of others. And if we continue to pursue that through our journals and our academia, we will not help, you know, harmonize our people and our communities. We will continue to contribute to the exploitation of the land, the people, and the environment, and everything that lives in it. That is the context that we live in. This is what we need to change through our work. So to do that, we need to do certain kind of work. Can you please enable screen sharing?
Okay.
I will now screen my, yeah. Can you please
Okay, Bu
enable
Temi,
screen?
time for, yeah, time to share.
No, please don't start it. I will start it. Please don't do it. Run it yourself. I will run it. Can you
Oh,
please
so you will,
share,
okay.
enable share this?
Oh, so you
Yes,
will.
yes, please. You don't play that. Please, I will do it. Let me do it. Okay. Because I'm going to do it at a particular pace. I know what I'm going to do. And it's, thank you. So if I can enable, if you can enable screen sharing, you have to go into the setting and give me the ability to share my screen.
Already?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Okay, yes, I have it. Okay, great. All right, fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, yes.
All right, so you guys can see my screen now, right?
Yes,
Good.
yes, of course.
Yes.
All right. So the session that I'm calling it Project Reports as Subaltern Practice. Notice I'm talking about project reports, not research papers. And I'll talk about why. In a summary, in a nutshell, you know, research papers require us to base our work on reading and reading and reading and reading, primarily reading or certain types of data collection, very strongly manipulated and managed. That's it. That doesn't help because that research doesn't create an understanding of how things work in the world or how we can apply our learning to do things in the world. To do that, we need to do things. We need to take action. We need to have practice. When we have practice, when we are doing things, when we're creating things, then we will create certain things that will be available for everybody to see in the world because you have created it, you have done it. Once you have created it, once you have done it, that's when you write the project report. We want project reports, not research papers. We want people to do things that are good and then tell us how they have done it. Tell us how they used language in order to educate and people about the endangered plant life in their area, and how did they use language and social semiotics to create signage and material that help people to help the native environment and not disturb it. Are we doing that? Are our students creating that material? If they're creating it, we should be able to see it. Are our students making material, and are we creating material that will help reduce the rate of smoking? Are those visible around us? If not, our students are not doing it. So what is happening? We are not getting our students to do things that our community needs. We want them to do those things and then report on them. That's project report. Now notice, a number of these new ranking systems don't rank research per se. Yeah, publication in aspect of it. It's not research necessarily, it's publication. And also notice, publication typically is only about 30% of the ranking, if that. There's a very large chunk of ranking systems which are based on community involvement and community impact. That is where we need to focus on, because that bit of chunking of ranking system is open. We can do so much. Use that aspect of the ranking system, the one where we focus on community benefit, do that work and then write it up as project report. Then you have publications that will be, forget Scopus and ISI, it will be the stuff people want. And when people want things, that is the respect, that is the ranking, nothing else. That's what really matters. Okay, so keep this in mind. Now I'll start, as I start a lot of my sessions, with a poem. And I've already sort of been going on for a while, but let me just read this poem. Leaving the promises behind, I choose to retreat into the woods, to listen, to learn, to unlearn.
Okay.
Now, I wrote these lines when I was living in the bush, but also as a response to, do you know that poem, Stopping by the Woods on a Snowy Evening? It's by this American poet, his name will come back to me. But it's, yeah, and the name will come back to me. But it's a poem, a beautiful poem about, you know, what was it? The woods are lovely, dark and green, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep, or something like that. Right? Notice in his poem, he creates an image of a beautiful forest, but the forest is owned by a person who lives in a town. The question is, how can you own a forest and you don't even live in the forest? How is ownership of a forest even possible? You know, these poetry that we learn in school and through our English programs and English curricula, they come loaded with certain ideologies and ways of looking at the world. So for example, normalization of ownership of land. It's normalized in our world today. But just think about it, our ancestors in your part of the world and my part of the world, land ownership didn't exist. It came in with the Europeans. And they normalized it through their literature and their research and their knowledge building, so that everywhere we have this craze for owning land. This is crazy, because land is a finite resource. Everybody can't just keep doing that. And yet that's the way the system has been built. And notice how our knowledge building is an infinite goal. You know, any goal that is infinite is by definition unachievable. So knowledge is infinite. You can never achieve all of it. Right? So if you make knowledge a goal, just like if you make money your goal, these are infinite things. You will never achieve them. They're endless. And in trying to do that, you will destroy what you have. And observe, that's what's happening in our world today. Wherever you find that people have set up infinite goals, there is chaos and disarray, right? So if knowledge is the goal, if money is the goal, if power is the goal, these are all infinite. So make finite the goal. Unlearn the things that we have been taught, the greed of the infinite. The greed of the infinite doesn't help. Focus on the finite. Focus on the finite, and the things around you. Help stabilize them through your action and through your work, through your actual activities. Once you have done that, then write about it. And then once you write, that writing will be worth it. This will be satisfying for you. It will be easier to write. Why will it be easier to write? Because you don't have to synthesize other people's theories and stuff. You have to base it on experience and doing things, which you have done. So the process of writing becomes easier. You don't get the same sort of problems that you have in academic writing, which we know is a painful thing. It just goes away. You know, that pain goes away because you're no longer writing stuff that you don't understand or you don't know. You've only thought about it because you read something. You have never experienced it, and you may never experience it. Right? And yet we are based we are forced to construct knowledge on these things that we can never observe or experience. How good can our knowledge really be? So why is it that our scholars often cannot get a Scopus or ISI rankings? It's not because we don't work hard. It's because we are misguided in what we are doing. And if we fix our directions, then the amount of that work that you guys put in, if you decrease it by 50%, put in half the work that you're putting now, you will realize you can actually achieve way much more. And that well-being and prosperity that you will experience in your community and where you live will be a real physically lived experience. It's not something that lives in the imagination. So coming back doing this, and that's why it's important to think about looking at project reports. So why project reports? I'll go through this very quickly. So because project reports are based on doings and actions, not just research. When you do things, when you take action, you learn from them. Doing and action makes a difference. Project reports are texts that show how and why a project was carried out and with what results, right? So it's telling us doing things, teach us to do things. I need to fix things in my backyard. If you teach me how to do it, create a video, create a YouTube, write a short thing, doesn't have to be 25 pages, short and simple and easy, with clear directions, I will go and do my gardening in the back because I watched you. Guess what? You spent the time that you put in has brought results, not just in your backyard, but my backyard, right? That's the idea, sharing how to do things better and learning from each other so that we can slow down and harmonize the societies that we live in, reduce the conflict, reduce the greed for the infinite. Now, project reports provide examples and ideas for others people to try. I might read something you have done in Bunghatta and I say, wow, that's so amazing. I should try doing it in some other place, right? So your work gives me ideas of what I can do. That's beautiful. That's real inspiration. Then, and importantly, project reports work really well with what I call the credible approach. Now, I have talked about the credible approach in multiple different places, so I won't go through it in detail. Just a quick summary. A credible project credible is an acronym. It means that the project is driven, it has to be contextually relevant, that is, think locally. It responds to practical needs. You don't start with a literature review. Literature is there to help you, it's not your goal, it's your resource or support, right? It's your focus, your goal is to attend to and respond to a practical need. You engage stakeholders, not just collect data. People in your community are not just people who should fill out surveys because you need it. That's unethical. Instead, think of them as fellow human beings, as your brothers and your sisters and your cousins and your relatives and your family and your herd, your group of people who are all going to live in harmony. And to create harmonization, you engage with people, you talk to people. So today, this morning, for those of you who are my Facebook friends, I posted a video from where I am, Cooktown. Just down the road, there was a Saturday morning market. And I took a video and there was a guy there playing music and collecting some money. He's now my friend. Why? Because after he played the music, I went up and I talked to him and engaging him. He's my stakeholder. Why? Because the work we are doing is to use knowledge building to harmonize the world around us instead of creating the oppression that we are experiencing right now, right? The need to publish papers is oppressive. We don't need that oppression. We need to spend that time and energy doing something beneficial and good and positive. And then that will give us the positive energy. And that's the positive energy that you work back into the system and you write a paper. My stakeholders are all of you and everybody on the street because we all live in the same world. I talk to everybody on the street. That's why I go by Prof. Nomad. Everybody, you engage with your stakeholders, you make friends with them, you connect with them. They're not data. They're not your subjects. We are teachers. Teachers are role models. Teachers are guides. Teachers are mentors. Teachers are not data collectors. Think about it. The ethics of research and what we need to do. In doing this, we need to really need to understand local knowledge and practices. Pay attention to the local beliefs and their practices and their expressions and how it works. And if best a researcher is one who works in their own community, because they are the insider, they are part of it, and they will have trust of the people. So that's why I keep saying, think locally. How will you have trust in somebody who's foreign that you don't really know? Especially don't even know, you only have read a book. How do you know what a person is like if all you have done is read their book? You know, very often people get very disappointed when they meet the author because they have taught the author of something, but they're not. So imagine that when you realize that this person is really like this, do you still have faith in the work they're producing? How can we have faith in the work? We need to know the person, we need to know the work to be able to understand and observe and make a decision based on our engagement with people. And that is done locally, right? Because that is respected. And that work that you produce in response to it, your community members will respect you for it. And that's much more important than any recognition by a journal or a ranking system. It's the respect of your own community. That's the most important thing, right? In doing this, of course, we are informed by diverse approaches and experiences, not just Western. Look everywhere, not just your own country, your own context, look everywhere. It doesn't matter where. You never know what you will find where. And I'll give you an example of it when I finish this talk. Benefits local communities. If your project doesn't benefit, don't do it. It has to benefit. Imagine we spend how many years of our life doing a PhD? I don't know, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years of life spent doing a PhD. Who benefits from the PhD? Who? Even the author of it doesn't. You get a job perhaps, or publication and get some money and get a title, but who's benefiting from it? All the work, all the hours of work that you did, who's benefiting from it? I would think that a plumber or a carpenter who spends 1 year instead of 3 years and makes the furniture we need, we sleep on it and we sit on it and we eat on it and we live in it. Whereas 3 years, 4 years, 5 years of an academic life gone, nothing to show for it. Why? Because of the kind of knowledge we're producing, it's rotten. Read that article and you will see why it's rotten. Forget that, fix your things, we need to all fix our own homes. If we can all fix our own homes, we will be okay. We just need to do it ourselves in our places. And as you're doing this, you will guess nobody else would have done what you're doing, right? Nobody else would have done in Bunghatta but what you have done. And therefore, you're the lead. And that's it. Nobody else can do it because you are living there. You're the local, right? And that's contribution, that linking, that sharing, then creates the traditional, recreates the indigenous bonds that used to exist between all of us and have been broken by the divisive nature of Western academia and its approaches to knowledge making. And if we reverse that and rethink indigenously, rethink harmonizing, not peace. Notice I don't like the word peace. I don't use peace. Why? Peace is an absence of conflict, which means conflict is always a possibility, right? Peace and a conflict are always together. They're not good because you don't want that. Instead, think harmony. Harmony doesn't need peace or conflict. It's harmony. A forest is a harmonic system, ecosystem. It's a harmony in it. Yes, it's true that certain animals in a forest will become prey and will be eaten, and other animals will eat. That's true. But notice, nothing in the forest goes hungry. The forest as a whole is an ecosystem. That's sort of a thing we need to think of, the harmony. Rethinking harmony building. How does harmony happen? How do we build harmony? And how do we do it? Through taking action, because action changes the harmony. Now, this, if you guys do music, you will understand this quite well as well through music. Now, of course, if you're doing this, and as we've been talking, ethics is the principal, basic starting point for us. In fact, we are questioning the Western knowledge making because it is unethical. And therefore, our response is to create an ethical knowledge production. And ethical knowledge production is one that is beneficial to everybody and does not bring harm to anyone, right? And does not harm anybody. That's very important. Now, how do you do this sort of stuff? I've written about this in different places. There's this thing I called a practical guide to doing positive discourse analysis, not critical discourse analysis, positive discourse analysis. Why positive? because just like in critical discourse analysis, we are looking for samples of texts or examples that went wrong or there was something wrong with them. And by studying them, we analyze what was wrong with it. I'm cringing just thinking about it because it leaves you frustrated. It leaves you angry. It leaves you frustrated. It leaves you upset. It's like, oh, the world is so bad. The world is so bad. The world is so bad. Everybody is pointing out the problems. And we create this horrible atmosphere of negativity through that. So I encourage doing positive discourse analysis. Look at examples of positive things, good things that have happened in the world, things that people are doing which are making a big difference. Look at those projects and study those and study how they do good things. And by studying good things, we can do good things. Right now, we study bad things, so we do bad things. Let's study good things so that we can do good things. Simple, right? Very simple relationship. That's it. In nature, things work very simply. The complexity is somewhere else. Nature is simple. You just have to live in it, right? Now, in doing this, notice earlier on I said, don't do a literature review. So because we are all stuck in this idea of the literature review. And in fact, if you're doing a PhD or a master's or dissertation or a research project, sometimes your lecturers and teachers say, you have to have a gap in the literature. Show me a gap in the literature. If you cannot show a gap in the literature, you cannot do this project. We are all forced into creating gaps in literature. I won't name names, but I know many of us, including myself, sometimes just create that gap because it needs to be created, because otherwise you will not get published or you won't get marked. So notice we are making people do certain things because we demand certain things. Just pause for a second. How do we expect anybody, including ourselves, to know all the literature that there is about something? We can't. And to have that ability to evaluate it, imagine you're a student, you don't have that evaluative framework. People who have been working 50 years, 60 years, they have the experience to be able to evaluate things. Somebody who is starting off doesn't have that experience or doesn't have that ability to do it. And forcing them to create these gaps makes them create gaps. That's why their research is poor. It's poorly conceptualized based on literature review. It's a horrible thing. Please stop doing literature reviews and stop doing finding a gap, and stop recommend to your colleagues to stop doing it as well. It is not helpful. Instead, think about the literature review in a whole different way. I've given you the link here. This is a text called How to Write a Literature Review for Project Development. This is a workbook. Okay, it's a workbook that I created with my students. So my students did the work. So this also is an example of what I'm talking about. Work with your students to create resources that other students and teachers can use, right? So we learned the theory, but we didn't learn the theory. We learned it by applying it. We applied it to create a resource, a workbook. And of course, when you create something, you understand the theory because the theory is only there to explain and help. And if the theory is not helpful, you throw it away. You find what you need to. If you cannot find it, you put it together yourself. You make it yourself. There is no restrictions on it. Do it for your own sake, for your own goals. Literature review is not restricted to written text in English in Scopus journals. No. A lot of the examples that I get in my writing come from people who have never even gone to school. It is their experience in life and their practical wisdom of having survived to live until 40 years of age in a very difficult environment. That wisdom and experience does not exist in a peer-reviewed, double-blind, peer-reviewed article. How can it? How can you compare the wisdom of a person who lives in the present and exists because they have to survive every day of their life? How can you compare that wisdom to something that is written based on a reading of 20 articles? Do you see the problem? The very nature of a research article is the problem. We don't want research articles. Research articles are our end. They are horrible things. They're painful to write. We don't get reviewers. It's hard to get published. And once we get published, nobody reads them. It's a waste of time and resources for what? No reason, no benefit. So change it. Focus on literature review for project development. That's a whole different way of thinking about literature review. I won't go into it. It's there. You can read it for free. It's all there. So once you've done this, you write a research project. So how do you write a research project? I'll tell you, it's very easy. There is no fixed way of doing it because each report has to be based on what you do. How can I tell you to structure it? You structure it based on what you did, right? But in general, I can tell you what information it should include. It should include the goals of the project, right? Why was the project needed? What information was gathered before, prior to designing and implementing the process? What did you gather? It doesn't matter if it's books or it's grandmother's stories. It makes no difference. They're all valuable sources and we respect them all. When and where was the project carried out? How was the material designed? How was the project implemented? What were some of the key outcomes of the project? What suggestions do you have for someone else who wants to carry out a similar project? That's it. You know, if you have done the project, you can write this in 2 hours. You have everything in your head. And then you include, where appropriate, copies of links of materials and things. Include the links and that's it. On your way. It can be short and sweet. Doesn't need to be 25 pages. It can have more pictures and links to videos than it needs text. It doesn't need text. It needs to be simple. You can see things. You know, when you do things, your things are observable. When we create research, research is not observable. There is no way for you to go into and find out if the research paper that you're reading is actually honest. You just cannot do it. It's an impossibility because you cannot transplant yourself in another place and time. You cannot observe everything. You just cannot. So what you have to do instead is trust. Now, if trust is placed well, then okay, perhaps it will be good. But when we place our trust in things that are problematic, then we are in real problem. And notice that where we are in our work today. Okay, I'm getting conscious also of time. I'm going to just take a little sip for my coffee. And I'll move on to the last slide, which is actually a poem. So I started with a poem. I'm going to end with this poem. Now, let me give you a bit of the context of this poem. I wrote this poem very recently. You're the first audience that actually is reading it. I've not shared it anywhere. You will notice right now on my screen, the cowboy, right? And I've actually blanked out the number plate because this is the cowboy. I met this cowboy a couple of weeks ago, and this is his story. I just wrote his story down because I thought it was a beautiful metaphor. And you will, as I read this poem to you, you will realize that it is a metaphor of social change. How do you create social change without creating hurt, without hurting yourself and without hurting others? How do you create a reform which is non-violent, which is harmonic? And the answer is in a metaphor from Cowboy Dale. All right, so this is Cowboy Dale in my words. Papa, how do they fix a windmill? Guddu asked as we drove by some farms. Ah, great question. Cowboy Dale told me how. He climbs up 40 feet to a platform, his harness always on for safety. No stop button waits for him. He has to stop the blades himself. Wow, really? That must be scary. How does Cowboy Dale stop them, Papa? Curious Guddu asked. If he puts his hand in, they will be hurt. Guddu imagined as he touched his left arm. So he has to be smart, he has to be fast, and he has to be brave. He focuses on each blade as it shoots close and tries to grab it from the top as it whooshes by. Wow, he can stop it like that by catching it? Guddu wondered. Well, it is a slow process. He said it can take hours to slow down the blades, just enough to stop them before fixing and releasing them. Wow, Papa, Cowboy Dale is so cool. I wonder if I can fix things like him. And I will leave you guys with this point. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Okay, well, that is very interesting presentation. Yeah, that is a very make our realize that what is the most important thing for the projects. Yeah, so lots of notes that I at a point that I take a note here, but probably we will discuss it later. And let's come to the second presenter. Thank you very much, Ahmad, for the interesting presentation. And then let's come to the second presenter is Professor Setiono Sugiharto from Atmajaya Catholic University. Professor Setiono earned his PhD degree in Applied English Linguistics in Atmajaya Catholic University in 2012. At present, he is the head of Master Doctorate Program Graduate School Applied English Linguistics at Atmajaya Catholic University, Indonesia. He produces many publications and professional experiences. And I believe Professor Setiono is very productive lecturer, which is the CV of Professor Setiono consists of 26 pages. So it is very a lot of experience from Professor Setiono. Professor Setiono also received cum laude predicate for 3 times for his bachelor, master, and doctoral degree. He published many articles in book chapters, referred journals in local, national, and international scope, book author, opinion, editorial article in newspaper, and also invited speaker in national conference and international conference, guest lecture in national and local university. Okay, please welcome Professor Setiono Sugiharto. Time is your, Prof.
Thank you very much, Ibu Temi. I would like to express my gratitude to all of the participants who are present virtually with all of us today. Thank you also Ibu Yusrita, who invited me. Okay, thank you for the invitations as well to Pak Rektor Universitas Bunghatta. Today I would like to share my experience as a non-native speaker of English struggling to publish in the mainstream journals. Ibu, allow me to share my screen.
Okay. Already, Prof. You can share. Already. You can share now.
All right.
Yes.
Thank
okay.
you, Ibu Yusrita.
Yes. You're welcome.
Now, as a non-native speaker of English, I am also struggling hard in order to be able to publish in mainstream journals. Here, I would like to share some of these strategies. These strategies are actually some lessons which I learned from the reviewers of different international journals. Let me now share, first of all, from the articles that I published in international journals of applied linguistics. This is published by John Wiley. This article has just been published in January this year. The second article is also published. This is quite an old article published in 2015. This in the same journal, but different articles. The next article is published by TESOL Journal. This is also published by John Wiley. And the last article is published in Oxford. This is Applied Linguistics, published by Oxford University Press. Now, if you may look at these articles, you may give the impressions that writing is well structured, writing is well ordered, but in fact, the process was very messy. The process was very painful. The process was not really comfortable. This is basically because we sell, in quote, we sell our knowledge, we show off our knowledge to the reviewers. And mind you, some top tier journals like Applied Linguistics, TESOL, TESOL Journal, and International of Applied Linguistics are tightly gatekept by the reviewers. Now here, as a writer, if we wish to get published in these journals, then we need to struggle. Not only struggle to represent ourselves, but also struggles in how to create, how to produce knowledge which is acceptable to the scholars in the mainstream. Now, let me now explain and share some of the comments from the reviewers, which I think can become lesson learned from all of us wishing to publish in these journals. First of all, this is the comments from TESOL Journal. One of the reviewers, at that time, I wrote about an article which tried to refute, which tried to clarify some of the arguments which were written by Indonesian scholars. Now, the reviewers of this journal, one of the reviewers says like this: this article appeals to the interests of TESOL Journal readership because it shifts discussions on communicative competence from a local context to a more global linguistic level. Now, this is what Professor Ahmar has explained before, contextualizing our knowledge from our locality. But we need to link it to global perspective. Now, the reviewer also says that this article invites TESOL Journal readers to question their understanding of communicative competence, as well as practices with communicative language teaching. Therefore, the appeal is that, as the reviewer said, I tried to question the very notions, the very basic understanding of communicative competence, questioning the notions of communicative competence from my own perspective, which is the perspective of locality, my own situation. This is the appeal. In other words, if we wish to write for the journals, international journals, then we need to think the appeals of our articles so that it will be accepted by the reviewers of the journals, by the gatekeepers of the journal. The second reviewer says like this: the article helps relate new scholarship to English language teaching. It makes the readers refine their own CLT pedagogies. Now, of course, when we write for journal publications, particularly in journals, right, we need to read what is new, what is the state of the art. This is what is meant by new scholarship. Even though the notions of communicative language teaching is not new, this is not a new notions, but we can have what we read, the state of the art, the articles of the state of the art, the new scholarship to this old notions of communicative language teaching. This is what makes it make this becomes appealing to the reviewers of the journal. The second thing, the second strategies that I learned from this these three journals, it should be noted, however, that maybe other journals, other reviewers from other journals might have other expectations. But suffice it to say here, these three reviewers, these three journals from TESOL, International Journal of Applied Linguistics and Applied Linguistics, they have this expectation for the writers, for the contributors. The second is article has significance. Now, let's see here what the reviewer says about, one of the reviewers says about the significance of the article. The discussions of situated language learning presented in the article is not new. So, as I said before, my topic is not new actually, but I insert something, I inserted inside which is not has not been taught before by the other scholars, by the other writers. And the comments from this reviewer says the article is not new, but the fact that it includes various layers is. Okay. Now, because the context is communicative competence, so I ask the readers to rethink the notions of communicative language teaching, particularly communicative competence, from another perspective, from another look. It means that there are other resources beyond the classroom which can contribute to the language learning process. Therefore, language practitioners should be aware of these resources and benefit from them to facilitate language teaching and to promote language learning. So in other words, the significance lies not just in the notions of communicative competence per se, but there are other perspectives, but there are also other insights that I have contributed. These perspectives are resources which are beyond the classroom setting. This is the significance of the article. Now, the reviewer from another journal, International Journal of Applied Linguistics, has this to say. I revised the article because of the comment, and the reviewer says that the article can be published as it contributes to the agenda of the International Journal of Applied Linguistics, aiming to show how particular perspectives, paradigms influence our reading. Again, I use the context of my own locality, as Professor Ahmar said, that local knowledge, our local knowledge. I situated the concept, I situated certain topics from our locality and link this to global relevance. Now, here is very interesting comments from another journal, another reviewers in applied linguistics. The author counters this perspective. I tried to counter a certain perspective from previous scholars by arguing that periphery scholars adopt resistant tactics to represent voices and knowledge and the great arts. And the reviewer goes on to comment, bringing out such tactics from the periphery is very important. So when we try to sell, in quote, our articles to the international publications, then we need to show the reviewers that there are new insights that will not be missing if it's not included in the article, it's not included in the journal. If the journal is not published, then you will miss something. I offer you new perspectives, I offer you new insight which have not been taught before by the other scholars. Now, the reviewer says that this helped teaching and professional development and students as scholars to negotiate established conventions strategically for writing. This is the significance of the article, according to the reviewers. Now, last comments from the TESOL, the second reviewer, is that the article invites readers to reconsider their understanding of the notions of communicative competence and their practices within the context of CLT. And this is important, encourages teachers not to go by what is dictated to them, by drawing attention to the multiple layers of situated language practice. Here, we need to challenge the status quo, actually. So what has been considered established construct, what has been considered as established concept needs to be challenged. Particularly if we are talking about communicative competence, the notions of communicative competence has been associated with Chomsky's competence. Now, to give fresh insight, to give the significance, to insert the significance of our article, then we need to challenge the status quo by, of course, offering new insights, offering fresh insight. The next point is the article needs to have a global relevance. Again, here I'm basing my points based on the comments from different reviewers from different journals. Now here from the reviewer from International Journal of Applied Linguistics, in line with INJOL, aims, and scope, this article combines empirically grounded position and analysis of a local phenomenon with an exemplary explanation of its global relevance. Again, Professor Amar Mahbub's point is relevance here. Local phenomenon, locality, with exemplary explanation of its global relevance. Then the challenge is how can we connect our local phenomenon with global phenomenon? That is what is expected from the reviewers of this journal, actually. The contribution has the potential to elicit some interesting responses. Now, it's also better for us to consider that our articles, our ideas, our insight may hopefully elicit some responses. From the readers of the journal. Others point is that articles needs to be written in clear focus and explicit arguments. This is the comments from two reviewers. In all, this paper is very good. However, it needs to focus more on the topic of teacher education. At that time, I wrote about teacher education, and it was not really focused. The focus was not really clear. So the reviewer provided this comment. And I think which is also very valuable comments. Yes. And therefore, I recommend the paper to be revised to reveal how the author relates teacher education and language policy and planning to ELF pedagogy. This is the comments. Now, here again, as I said before, process of writing is messy. It's not very neat. It's very painful because you need to revise and revise. You need to have to reflect what you have written before. You need to often we need to revise. We need to dismiss new the old ideas that we have written. We have to revise it along with the emergence of new ideas. Now here, the reviewer says that the article is messy tidy up. and should leave only the bare bones of the argument, avoiding unnecessary repetitions, and importantly, presenting the main point with academic clarity and rigor. This is the expectations that I learned this from these reviewers. Okay, next point is that this is a comment from the review of Applied Linguistics, Oxford publications. I use certain terminologies, and thankfully, the reviewer was very meticulous, and she provided these comments. I use the term tactics. I use certain terminologies, but the reviewer says that these terminologies are very abstract. The notion of tactics that I use in the article are very vague. So here is my arguments that I presented in the article. But the comments from the reviewers that these notions are very abstract. These terminologies are very abstract, and I was advised to make it more specific, so that the articles becomes useful not only for teachers but also for scholars. So this is other strategies that I learned from the reviewers of the journal.
A lot of things.
Yes, article needs to be written in scholarly, well-structured.
Yes.
And the arguments that we need to present needs to be persuasive and convincing. Let's see what the reviewers of the journals has said here. Overall, this paper is scholarly and well written. It presents a convincing argument and integrates well with the theory of critical social science and transformative teacher education. So the lesson learned is that we need to present our ideas orderly, and the arguments needs to be convincing, so that because we are convincing, we try to convince the reviewers of the journal so that our manuscript can be published. I also had one experience when I, for the first time, my article got rejected from the reviewers. That the comments are that the arguments are not really convincing enough. Okay, so so if we try to write the arguments which are not well supported, which are not which cannot convince the reviewers, chances are that our articles will be outrightly rejected by the reviewers. Now, the comments from the second reviewer of the International Journal of Applied Linguistics here is also is worth noting. The paper is an important positions paper. It does not seem to include the teacher education aspect of English as a lingua franca in an up-to-date manner. So what does it mean? What does it imply? It implies here that we need to keep abreast of the new development of the topics that we are writing. It doesn't mean that old ideas needs to be totally rejected. No, of course, but there is certainly wisdom from classic works of certain literature review, certain articles written by certain scholars. However, it's advised that we need, of course, to keep abreast with the new development of the topics that we are writing, new insights generated from new studies. So this point is also worth noting when we want to publish our articles in the journals, international journals. Now, how about the reviewing process. I experienced the review process ranging from 6 to 18 months. Now, as I said again, the process is very painful. Please don't get discouraged. If you receive comments, if you receive feedback from the reviewers, don't be discouraged. Certain reviewers are also very, very tough. Very, well, if I might say, some of the comments are quite rude, but please don't get discouraged. Because this is a process. Writing is an ongoing process. Now, in summary, I would say like this: writing for publication is a site of struggle, struggling to represent yourself to the international academic discourse community, struggling to convince the reviewers, struggling to persuade the reviewers, to convince the reviewers that your article is worth publishing. Your article offers new insights, new perspectives. This is a side of struggle. So because journal publications, journal writings, academic journal writing is a tight gatekeeping practices. I see writing for publication as a side of struggle. No less important is that writing is a mode of learning. So when your articles are commented, when your articles are given feedback, then here is the time for you to learn. That here is for you the time to learn from the reviewers. What are the points that needs to be accommodated? What are the points that what are the useful points that you can learn from this feedback and from this comments? Well, of course, you can also defend your positions, because the editors of the journals are also allowed you to defend, are allowed you to clarify your own positions in light of the reviewers' comments and feedback. Okay, now here is the elements of academic writing. This I'm just explaining this briefly because of the time. So here are the elements of academic writing is that disciplinarity, criticality, and positionality. So if you want to be able to write, and if you want to be able to get published, then of course you need to have sound knowledge. You have to have sound knowledge of about what you are going to write. This is disciplinarity. You inform, you are engaging yourself in the disciplines. You have sound knowledge with the topics that you want to write. However, you need also to be critical. You are not just simply accepting every arguments. You are not just simply accepting every opinions from the scholars, but you also need to be critical. And you also need to state your own position. If you are being critical, so what? You need to state your position. This is elements of academic writing. Now, academic writing can also be seen as moves. This is particularly important to understand that when you write your draft, then make clear that the territory of your article, the territory of your research is crystal clear, followed by the gap, the niche. If you are doing a research article, then the territory must be crystal clear, and then the gap must be included, and the niche, where you find the niche, must also be explicitly stated. Academic writing can also be seen as social action, meaning that if you want to write a certain topics, then you are willing to join a conversation. You review the literature you survey the literature, you sort out the literature, you synthesize different ideas, you criticize different ideas from the literature. Here means that you join a conversation. Now, joining a conversation is necessary but not sufficient condition. The next point is that you are interrupting the conversation. Here, what this means that you are being critical. You are not just simply accepting. You are not just simply borrowing people's ideas, but you also need to interrupt. Here, you are being critical. You create the gap. You see the loopholes. So here are the points of your research later on. Now becoming a part of the conversation. So here then you include what your purposes of your research are, occupying the niche. Then academic writing can be seen as an act of persuasion. By disciplinarity means that by writing, by researching a certain topic implies that I know what I'm writing. I know what I'm investigating in my research because I know my topic. Academic writing can also seen as an in the act of persuasions mean that I think. I'm not just simply have sound knowledge about the topic, but I also think. I try to see the gap. I'm trying to be critical here. This is I think. And lastly, I do. So I know, I think, then you do your research. You do what you have promises. Okay. All right. Very practical advice. Practical pieces of advice to those wishing to publish in international publication. I quoted a famed novelist, Stephen King. If you don't have time to read, you don't have the time or the tools to write. Simple as that. Here, some other pieces of advice which are, I think, very valuable for us to muse these pieces of advice. Mary Leonhardt says like this: the sophisticated skills demanded by high-level academic or professional work, the ability to understand multiple plots or complex issues, a sensitivity to tone, the expertise to know immediately what is crucial to a text and what can be skimmed, can be acquired only 2 years of avid reading. You may learn strategies of writing. You may learn the techniques of writing in academic publication. Unless you read, it's gonna be useless. Flower and Hayes says, this may be one way in which extensive reading affects a person's ability to write. A well-read person simply has a much larger and richer set of images of a text can look like. You see here, a good writer must be a good reader. That's for sure. Crescens says reading that gives the writer the feel for the look and texture of reader-based prose. So let me reiterate my point. Even though if you have learned hundreds of strategies, hundreds of techniques of publishing in journal, academic journal, unless you invest your time reading, then it's gonna be useless, I think. So reading has the power here. And Zoltan Doni finally offers this advice. The best way to learn how qualitative research findings are reported, and quantitative as well, is to read journal articles and book chapters that model this particular genre. Thank you very much for these occasions to share with all of you. Thank you, Ibu Temi.
Okay, thank you very much, Bapak Professor Setiano. It is very interesting, Pak, that I have a note for your presentation. This is the quotation that you You write here, if you don't have time to read, you don't have the time or tools to write.
Yes, this is the quotes from famed novelist Ibu Stephen King.
Yeah, very important. So we should be considerate about this. Okay. Later we will discuss it, Pak. So I will move to another presenter. Thank you very much, Pak Setiono. For the next presenter is Professor Dr. Hendra Suherman, STMT. Professor Hendra Suherman earned his PhD degree from Department of Mechanical and Mechanical and Materials Engineering, University Kebangsaan Malaysia in 2012. At this time, Professor Hendra Suherman is a Vice Rector for Academic Affairs of Universitas Bunghatta. Professor Hendra is a very productive in doing research and received research funding from DT for many periods. This year, Professor Hendra received SIM of world-class research funding from DICTI, and he published articles in international journals, becoming the invited speakers in international conference and seminar, and active in the International Association of Engineers. Okay, so please welcome Professor Hendra Suherman. Time is yours, Prof.
Okay, thank you, Bu Temi. The Honorable for our Rector, Professor Dr. Takdir Husni. Thank you for your invitation. To the Honorable, our Dean of Faculty of Humanities and host of this event, Dr. Diana Citra Hasan, and then Dr. Yusrita Yantianhum, Editor-in-Chief, Journal of Culture and Lingua. Congratulations, because you have successfully published the first volume in your journal. And especially for our speaker today, Associate Prof. Anwar Mahbub from University of Sydney, Australia. Welcome to Universitas Bunghatta. Thank you for your support. And Professor Dr. Setiono Sugiharto from Unika Atmajaya, Jakarta. Welcome to Universitas Bunghatta, Prof. Thank you for your support so that our webinar running well. And all participants from Indonesia and also other countries. And today I will try to share about my experience in publication in some journal, but I'm the second presenter today. I think all of the item already discussed well. Start from Associate Prof. Ahmad. He talking about the why we need to write the report and the philosophy of the research. And then Prof. Dr. Setiono also already shared for us about the experience successfully accepted for the high impact journal, and he also shared about the comment of the reviewer. We know that because there's some journal, at least there are two blind reviewers, so very thoughtfully if our article submit to the journal and need to get the comment of the reviewer. And he also said for us the time we need to submit from the publish the article 6 to 18. We need to know about this. So I will try start from maybe. Okay.
Yeah, but it means that it's wet.
Okay. This is title of my presentation today. I try to basically, I think we need to do how to write, because two speakers previously already share for us how to get the idea, how to get the philosophy, how to answer the question of the reviewer, and some others. For the first slide, I need to give motivation for us, for our presenters, because I'm sure that some of us consist of lecturer and researcher. This is at least there are 4 steps we need to reach as a lecturer. Start from we call it assistant ahli, lektor kepala, and professor or guru besar. This is our development career for us, especially for lecturer. Now, maybe some of us have position as lektor kepala, and then if we stay at lektor kepala, we need to reach professor or guru besar. This is we need. This is our motivation, I think. So we need to research. We need to write the research result of the research. So we try to understand, of course, which one the best journal, which one the best journal, how to clarify, how to find. I think this is very important keyword to need to get from this event. We know that in our country, at least there are 4 kind of journal. We call it Journal Nasional. They consist of ISSN, of course, and the second is Jurnal Nasional Terakreditasi. We know from the there are, for example, Sinta 1, Sinta 2, Sinta 3, and Sinta 4. And then Jurnal International Journal, indexed by the OAG, for example, like that. And the last journal is very difficult to accept it from this journal, for example, like that. Prof. Previously speaker has shared for us about how to submit, how to solve, how to try to answer the question of the reviewer, so that our article can be accepted from this journal. As we know that if we want to get professor, for example, we need to publish our article in quartile 2 by Simago Journal Ranking, Q2. So we need to identify first which one the sum of the journal, which one the qualify of Q2 journal. For example, like that, we try to find one, or how to find the good journal before we submit our article there. And I think this is already discussed from the speaker previously. We also talking from our friend, for example, difficult to accept from the good journal. I have no time to write. I have no time to submit the article because I have teach some course, for example, like that. I have no research. I have no motivation. This is at least there are 4 items that need to be solved first. In my mind, we need to focus. We need to sell our time so that we can manage our time. For example, if we have 24 hours a day, I think if we success to consistent 1 hour every day to think about research, to write about article, to write about proposal, I think we can successfully to write a good proposal, at least one proposal a year, and publish to a good international journal one a year. I think like that. Next, how to find a right journal based on publisher. At least there are 4. This is the top 10 publisher, I think. First are Elsevier. The second is Springer. Third, Sage Publication, and the fourth is Taylor and Francis. I think this is the best publisher. We need to submit our article from this publisher. And this is, we need to ensure that is the article submit to right journal. Because we know that if we try to find the journal, we will find some journal in the world. For example, maybe 20,000, 20 million maybe in the world. There are journal in the world. So we need to ensure is the journal is properly, is the journal is qualified for us, because we need to claim this article to maybe 1 year later or 2 years. We don't want to, for example, if our article accepted for this year and we will claim to the next year and the status of the article is discontinued. So the team of our PAK Dikti, for example, said, oh, your article cannot accept to your requirement to lektor kepala or others. And this is we can type in Google, for example, title of indexed Scopus, for example, indexed, because we know that if we want to our article as requirement for the lektor kepala, for example, we need our article indexed by at least by Scopus. Of course, we suggest to at least Q2 journal by Simago Journal Ranking or Q1 journal. We just to enter our title of our journal, and if the title we can find from this link, and we ensure that our journal is good. For example, like that. This is a Simago Journal Ranking. This is we need to know how to find some journal that are relevant with our field. We need to put in position, for example, the field is health and profession, for example. We need to find the all subject category, all region country, and all type. And the last year in the Simago Journal Ranking Index is 2019. And we can see some of the journal, very good journal, start from Q1 and then Q2, Q3, and also. And this is, we need to know also track record of our journal before we submit our article to this journal. For example, this is a Journal of Engineering and Technology. And I am one of the reviewer of this journal. Publisher is Institute Technology Bandung, ITB. For example, start from 2010, the quarter of journal is Q4, 3 years, until 2012. And then the last 2019, the quarter of journal increased to be Q2. I think this journal is enough as requirement to the professor, for example, like that, and lektor kepala. And this is the good journal, Q1 journal, Composite Part B Engineering, publisher Elsevier. This is their subject area and category. The H index is 132. This is very good journal. I have 2 articles in this journal. we can see that start from 2001 to 2019, the quarter is Q1. I mean, this is very good journal and very proud to accept it in this journal. This is also Keramik International, for example, Index 100, and also this is we talk about the challenge faced by journal and editors today. Why the acceptance rate of the article in the journal, especially Q1 journal, is very tough because the editor have too many manuscripts. Too many manuscripts submit in this journal. So if we start submit in journal, we need to know first, I think, acceptance rate of the article in this journal. So we can measure our competency, our capability, for example, like that. So we ensure that if we submit our article in this journal, our article can be accepted, for example, like that. An editor will pick the best paper for publication, of course. If we accept, for example, 100 paper, we just need, for example, just 20 every volume, and we can choose the best article. We can choose the best article, can be accepted and published from our journal. So we need to strategy how to write good article, how to write good articles, so that we need, if we submit to this journal, we just the probability maybe 50-50, I think. So we can got the reviewer comment, and we try to solve. We try to replace the comment, and then our article can be accepted. Yeah. This is we can classify. At least on worldwide, there are 50,000 journals. 50,000 journals. So there are some journals, but we know that also there are some articles also. There are some articles also. In ISI, Institute for Science Information, Philadelphia, USA, have impact factor, there are 8,000 journals. 8,000 journals. Also in Indexed Scopus, there are 22,000 journal and proceeding. So I think we have some chance to accept it in good journal. So I think this is have shared from the previous speaker. Also, I want to talking about the Mindtech. We call it IMRAT. This is very important, I think. Scientific article normally contain a number of sections as follows. First is introduction. Introduction is very, very important thing if we write article. The content relevant previous study and the objective of the current work. I want to say, at least if we write introduction, we need to four item, 4 things. First, we need to write the first paragraph, introduction, to give information about the readers, what we doing in this research. We need to introduce first. The second, we need to give the information, what the problem statement of the our research. What is this problem statement? And then the third is we need to do the literature review. We need to put in the introduction is previous study have done from the previous researcher. And then the next is we need to write the last paragraph in introduction is we need to write novelty. We need to write what kind of the research the researcher before, researcher previously still not done. At least there are 4 items we need to write in introduction. After that, The second is method. Method, we need to describe the preparation method and characterization technique specifically. Specific and describe all of item we use. For example, I need in this method, I need to write, for example, we use, because my basic is mechanical engineering, in characterization, we need to use, for example, I use this name, tanning machine, for example. We need to write the brand of the machine. We need to write the accuracy of machine. We need to write all parameter we use to produce the specimen, for example, like that. Also the characterization, start from the brand, start from the standard we use to testing, for example, and standard from how to process the data, for example, like that. All the information we need to write in this method. So the readers, the reviewer can be understand and about the method we use. And then the third item is research and education. This is very important because some of our lecturers, some of our researchers write the research without discussion. Why we say write the research? For example, like that. If we talking about the research, we need to give information, all of information we do to the reader, to the we read from our article, why we got the data from 1 year to year increase, for example, like that. After that, we need to describe why the data is increased. Then we need to discuss, we need to compare to the similarity, to the similar research previously with our data. It's important key, important point we need to discuss. And then we can make the summarize. So that's why the third item, we call it the research and discussion. This is very important if we submit to the good journal. And then reference. Reference is very important also because in the introduction, we can say that our research is something new. Our research is not doing to the researcher previously. So in this case, our reference need to for example, in my experience, I have got the comment of reviewer, for example, your reference is to all, for example, your reference is to all. Does that mean that if we got the, if we can say that our research has something new, but our reference is to all, this is very difficult for us to make sure our research is got novelty, for example, like that. And I think this is already said from this previous speaker, what we use this and discussion. Okay. I think this is also, and this is how to find the the good journal to submit our article. And this is from my field, especially from mechanical engineering. This is already accepted 2016. This is a sample of the title. For example, this is simple title, effect of small size conductive filler on the properties of an epoxy composite for bipolar plate in polymer electrolyte membrane function, for example, like this. But if we try to understand from this title, we can see that what the researcher doing from this title. This is why the title need to concise and simple, but the title must be describe all of the result of or the measurement, for example. Okay, this is I want to say about the abstract. This is a simple abstract because if we submit our article to the journal, we need to know first guidance for author. In the guidance for author, get us how many words abstract. For example, this is I think just 150 word. Different journal also different style. For example, maybe there are 200 or 250 also. Abstract. For example, like this, I just write the first paragraph just to give information about the what I'm doing to this article. For example, the main challenge of commercialization of single filler graphite polymer matrix composite is as bipolar plate are its low electrical conductivity and flexural strength. This is problem, right? This is problem need to be solved in this research. And there are the second paragraph is the minimum requirement set by U.S. Department of Energy, DOE, are the electrical conductivity and flexural strength to be greater than 100 Siemens and 25 ampere respectively. This is the requirement of the U.S. Department of Energy. We need to exceed this requirement if we can claim our research is successfully, for example, let's say. And then in the study, the electrical conductivity of G-epoxy EP composite single filler is only 50 Siemens per centimeter in plane conductivity at 80 weight percentage of graphite. I would like to say that because in this research there are two kinds of composition of our composite, single filler and multi filler. And then, however, flexural strength is greater than 25 MPa. This is the result, single filler. Using carbon nanotube as second filler at concentration of 5 weight percentage in CNT-GFE nanocomposite resulted in the implant propellant electrical conductivity and flexural strength being 180 Siemens per centimeter, 75 Siemens per centimeter, and 45 MPa respectively. It means that our research is exceeded the requirement of U.S. Department of Energy because the requirement just 100 Siemens centimeter and 25 MPa respectively. Our research with single filler and multi filler especially, the value is exceeded more than almost 100%. So that's why we say in this abstract is the density also less than of GFC, which demonstrated the total weight reduction is achievable. I think this is how to write the good abstract. Just 150, suitable with the rule of the guideline of the journal, for example. But all of the information our article exist from this abstract. That's why I said from my student, if you want to read the article, we need to understand first the content of abstract, because in abstract, all of the information of the article exists there. And then this is introduction. I think we can discuss about it because already shared from the previous speaker. Experimental, for example, that I will read, for example, two conductive filler were used in this study SD and CB, for example, like that. Also, the supplier kind of the our tool used to characterize, and then also the all component we need to write in this experimental and method. And then this part in my mechanical, in humanities also, how to make the questionnaire, for example, like that. How much they sample, how to about the tool to process it, the data, for example, like that. And this is we need to make the figure precisely and make the simple, but all information about the figure need to be clarified. For example, like that. I would like to say we need to, in this case, I use the origin flow to get this figure. For example, in the x-axis, we write content of CB, for example, and the y-axis, electrical conductivity, Siemens per centimeter, for example. And we need to adjust. How to figure, how to table precisely and look like nice. For example, this is conclusion. Also, we need to make the conclusion from the as answer of the objective our research, our article. And then thank you, because some speaker before already said about the start from philosophy of the project and why we need to give the report, and then share about the some comment of reviewer and how to solve, how to write, how to prepare our article so that the article can be accepted in the good journal. I think that's all. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Professor Hendra. Well, I'd like all of us to give big applause to all the presenters. Yeah, even it is virtually, so we can give a big applause for all the very interesting, informative talk from the three presenters. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now we come to question and answers session. There will be 3 sessions for the question and answer. For the first time, some question that already written in the chat room, so I will read it for the presenters. And then the second session, you can raise your hand if you have a question or comment to the speakers. Okay, for the first question, it goes to Professor Ahmad Mahbub from Amir Ali. Professor Ahmad Mahbub, I want to ask a question for Professor Ahmad Mahbub. This is about the production of local knowledge in teaching and learning English. It is indeed important to encourage and process to counter the hegemony of Western knowledge. But in approaching positively the local production of knowledge through English or any local language, where will we stand? I mean, to us, will this positive attitude towards the local knowledge not mitigate the critically of students? Will they not take it for granted or internalize the knowledge without questioning it? What repercussion will this have for the local societies? Okay, please, Professor Ahmad.
Thank you so much for that question. I would recommend that, the essay that I shared earlier, I will send the link again. Please have a look at that essay. I think I respond to your question in that essay because that's exactly the purpose of it is. Let me share the link again. So I've sent you the link. Have a look through the essay because it actually questions our understanding of what knowledge making is, right? We need to understand what knowledge making is. And in this essay, I do a little activity. And I'll do the activity with you. It's going to just take 2 minutes. Now, imagine this. Imagine, or you can do this later on in reality. Take a big bucket and then go around your house and just put 100 objects into it. You put just 100 random objects, different objects.
Sama saja ayam cianjur nasi bungkus 2 tambah ayam cianjur 1.
Please mute.
Excuse me, Prof.
Excuse me.
Hello.
Sorry, I got disconnected. I'm sorry, I've got disconnected. I'm going to rejoin from my phone. I think I'm having trouble with my laptop today. Give me just 2 minutes. I'll be rejoining. Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, Prof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, good. Okay. All right. I'm sorry for that interruption. It's very windy where I am, and so the internet is a bit choppy today. But hopefully now I'm on the phone, it will be better. So I was responding to your question by let us think about what is knowledge and how do we make knowledge. To do this, let's imagine a little activity. All right. So I was telling you, collect 100 objects, any objects, random objects, and put them into this big bucket. Right now, you put that, it's 100 items, different items, whatever they are, it doesn't matter. Now, take yourself into a room, go into a room, close the door, and put everything that you have on the floor. You can do that, right? You can do it. Now, this is what I want you to do next. I want you to sort out this stuff. I won't tell you how. You can choose whatever categories you want to create. You can choose. You decide what you want to do with that. You can sort them out any way you like. But notice, I will leave you there for 20 minutes. I will come back and you would have done the job. I would say, great work. You know what? Let's do it again. I'll mix everything up again. And I'll say, I give you 20 minutes again. I leave the room and I come back. Guess what? You would have sorted it again. And you most likely, your sorting will be different. It would not be the same. You will make changes. Now, so imagine you ask somebody else to come into the room and ask them to sort it. Guess what? They can sort it. And they will sort it differently again. Notice, even if that's only 100 items, every time we sort, that is, every time we create a categories and we classify things, we do it differently. Why? Because we do it with different thinking, different ideas, different experience, different goals, all this stuff. That is what leads to our creation of categories. And now notice, and this is very important for us to understand, categorization and classification, that is sorting. That is the first and the primary step for any science, any science. You cannot have science without categorization and classification, correct? Our honorable rector, who is an engineer, would know this, right? So in engineering, in physical world, everything, we think about it that way, right? We know that sorting is important. Sorting is the first thing. Once you create the sorting, then you can use the sorting to create inventions. You do methodologies. Methodology, reliability, ability to do the same thing multiple times, validity, all those stuff is about methodology. What products we create out of it is out of application. Fundamental science is the ability to sort things. And observe, even with 100 items, every time we sort, we do it differently. Every time somebody else sorts, they do it differently. Imagine now that you don't have a bucket with 100 items. You have 100,000, infinite amount of things around you. There are an infinite number of things around us in the world. How do we categorize it? We have infinite ways of categorizing it, depending on where we are, whatever needs are, what our experience is, whatever vision and scope of things are. That will determine our categories and our classification system. That means that will determine the science that we develop for ourselves. That is indigenous language. Indigenous language is indigenous science. They're not different things. Why? Because the indigenous language gives you all the classifications and the categorizations that are relevant in your geographical context. Why? Because language is always geographical. That is why English is a global language, because it has been geographically dislocated and has become a world language. That's why it has so much more ability to express things, because its geographical range is global. Right? The language you speak as your mother tongue, the language I speak as my mother tongue have relatively limited geographical range, and therefore their vocabularies, what they explain, their classification systems are based on that experience, not the rest of it. That's why English is different from the rest other languages. Now, if you read that article, I explained this to you in detail. And then I talked to you about why we need to change our goals of focus. Now, this also sort of leads to another question I read on the discussion post about what I'm saying is quite contradictory to some of the other things that the following speaker said. And I'm very aware of it. But notice I keep saying that what I'm talking about is a reformation. The current process, remember the poem that I read you, the windmill? The current windmill of publication, think of the windmill as the windmill of publication. Everybody is publishing research paper and it's going very fast. We know that. It's a windmill of publication is going very fast, right? Now, if we want to slow down, because we know what we know and we realize, all the speakers and all the audience realize that the research that we are publishing is not very meaningful. It is not really creating a difference in the world, because if it was, our world would be improving. But all we experience is more oppression and more aggression. If our experience is oppression, then perhaps our knowledge making and our publications are not what it should be. And therefore, I am essentially suggesting and encouraging all of you, all of my colleagues, including our very senior and respected administrators from the institutions, that we really need to rethink what we are doing for our research in our universities across all disciplines. Because these publications are not helping us. We need to do something that will help ourselves. Yeah, and guess what? That is the metaphor of the windmill. I know we are getting in this trend. Everybody just doing this. You know, when I was listening to the other presenters, it reminded me of my own presentations 5 years ago when I was the editor of TESOL Quarterly. My presentation would be not very different from what you guys presented. But notice how I've changed in my time, because I've experienced and observed what happens. And what the other side of the coin is. The other side of this publication coin is oppression. As you know, it's a painful process, and no real benefit comes out of it. So why punish ourselves? I'm suggesting, I'm imploring, I'm recommending, I'm doing what I can to suggest that we need to shift our ways of writing and doing work. We need to do it ourselves for ourselves. The fan is too fast. You guys are setting up a new journal. This is the perfect time where you can encourage the younger scholars and others to submit project reports instead of research articles. Build that aspect. And your journal will then be known for the first journal that put on project reports onto the map. And that's a very great honor to have, because then your journal is a first in the world. You don't need to compete with ISI or Scopus. You are creating your own standard. And that's what we want. We want our local communities, our local people, our local institutions to be the gold bearers of standard. Because otherwise, the Western policy makers will never let that happen. They always create the rules that will benefit them. And notice, as soon as we start learning the game rules, they change the game. They change the rules. And then we're down at 0.0 again. And then we start learning again. And then we start learning and we get there, and then they change the rules again. And all our lives and all of our parents' lives and all of our grandparents' lives, you and I are not very different. We were colonized and we were treated badly. Remember, the knowledge that we think is good today is the knowledge produced by the people who took over our lands. And they murdered our people and committed genocide, and they have left violence and poverty in our lands. These are the people we think are going to give us the models and are going to give us the rankings that will make us good. They are directing us, encouraging us to produce research that is going to have no real impact. Because, and I will end with this, you know, in human experience, time is only of two types, present or non-present. When they teach us past, present, future in our schools, they are teaching us a lie. There is no future tense in English. You know that. In English, there are only two tenses, present and past. Walk, walked. Drive, drove. To talk about the future, you have to have a modal. It's not a tense. Notice they don't even have a tense in their own language, and they teach us three tenses. They teach us lies. Why? Because through this tense system, they market us. They market us lies. Why? So that we can live in the non-present. So in our experience, imagine, observe this. You can observe this yourself. Don't need to trust me. Observe it yourself. In your experience as a human being, time only exists in terms of present or non-present. The difference between the two is your ability to act, take action. If you can act, if you can take action, you are in the present. If you cannot act, you are not in the present. You're either in the past or you're in the future, but you are not present. That's why you cannot take action. And notice, by making us write these research papers based on literature reviews and theories that none of which is observable, nothing is observable. We don't know anything for a truth. Krashen lies to us very often. Chomsky is wrong about notions of language because he doesn't even define language. How can a person who does not define language tell us anything about language? Right? This is the nature of the problems that we are encountering. And if we keep following them and their pathway saying, oh yeah, we need to produce research papers and the kind of journals they produce, we need to do that and match that, we are never going to win that race. We need to create our knowledge for our categories, for our local context. It doesn't matter if they connect to the global, it doesn't matter, it matters to us. If we have clean water, if we have, no, there is nobody sleeping hungry on our streets, if everybody has shelter and comfortable clothes and a good place to live, yes, then we can say our job is done and we can focus on the theoretical bits only. But until that point is done, we need to focus on projects. We need to believe in doing things. We need to perform. Performance, right? Performance is what matters. I'm going to stop there. Thank you so much for that question and actually a set of questions.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Ahmad. Okay, yeah, that is the reality that we need to, yeah, in one side we need to follow the government rules, the Ministry of Education rule, but another side, the reality things that we need to do for the research, our community, local community, we need to respect our local community. Okay, well, I think it is the explanation from Professor Ahmad also already answered the question from Pak Nurdiana Usman or Ibu Nurdiana Usman as well. Well, I think I will read another question for, probably it is comments, yeah? Comments, maybe for all the three speakers.
Yeah.
In my perspective, research publications should serve the purpose of developing both of our career and our communities that is typically articulated in the significance of the study. Any research we publish may contribute to our career development, but chances are not all provide positive impact to our communities. Okay. Can you, maybe if Professor Setiono would give comments first for this comments from Ibu Elaine Rose Nahon. Please, Prof.
Yeah, I think I couldn't agree more with this comment. And in fact, this is what our goal of doing doing research. That is that our research findings are supposed or are expected to provide positive impact to our communities at large. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Professor Hendra, would you give comment on this, please? Still mute, Prof. Prof. Hendra.
Unmute, please.
Okay.
Yeah,
Please.
yeah. I think the same thing, because if we're doing something, of course we need to reach our objective, right? For example, I'm doing research about the how about the last in the future the fuel is appear from our Earth, for example, like that. So we need to solve this problem. How to solve this problem? So that's why I'm doing research about the polymer electrolyte membrane fuel cell, isn't it? Isn't it? Because I'm not one to the future. We going to the darkness, for example, like this. If the oil is not exist in our Earth, for example, like that. That's why I'm doing the research about the polymer electrical membrane fuel cell, because this is some of countries, some of our researcher ensure that this is can be a replacement of the electricity, for example, like that. So I think we do it something because we need to reach our objective. I think that's all.
Okay. Thank you,
Yeah.
Prof. Hendra. Professor Ahmad, would you give comment on this statement, please?
Thank you. I mean, I agree with them that in certain cases, there are certain journal articles that do provide us good examples of practice, but by and large, they don't. So let's take a journal, for example. Let's take a journal from the field of second language acquisition, because people have referred to it here. Now, if you take a journal like that, most of the studies that are published are based on surveys or based on analysis of student texts. That's it. That is it. There is nothing else.
Okay.
How does it relate to the world? Right? That's my point. You know, disciplinarity is a problem. Disciplines don't actually exist. They are institutional things. You need within an institution, you need some sort of a structure in order to manage it. Because if it's a very large institution, it's difficult to deal with everything if you don't have some sort of an organizational structure. And to do that, our universities have adopted the approach of faculties and disciplines. This is not our indigenous approach. Please notice this. Neither in your part of the world nor mine, which were not very different. This was not our approach. We did not have faculties and disciplines. We imported this approach from the Europeans, because that's how their universities are set up. Faculties and disciplines. And we adopted that, we have borrowed it, and we have brought it in. But because we never really understood what it was that we were doing, we thought it was disciplines that are important. So notice, for example, we have ridiculous policies in our part of the world. You know, for example, if you have done an undergraduate in this degree, you cannot get a master's in another degree. If you have done this degree before, you cannot study this anymore. Huh? Why are we doing disciplinary-based divisions, separation, oppression? Every time you divide, you oppress. Every time you divide, you oppress. Remember that. Divisions are oppressive by their very nature. So why are we dividing them into disciplines? Notice our indigenous approach was holistic. We had a holistic understanding of things. And because we had a holistic understanding of things, remember, it was the Muslim traders that had the astronomy and the mathematics and the navigation. Your Europeans did not have it. It was the Chinese that had gunpowder. The Europeans did not have it. All the Europeans did was take gunpowder from the Chinese and turn it into weapons. What the Europeans did was take the knowledge of navigation and mathematics and chemistry and things, astronomy from the Muslims, and turn them into weapons. The Muslim traders were coming to Australia in the 9th century. They did not occupy the lands and convert everybody and force everybody to learn Arabic. They did not. They were traders. They loved and supported diversity. Notice what happened over time. Instead of our holistic understandings, we have stopped doing our own indigenous ways of doing. Instead, we have adopted faculty and disciplines. Faculty and disciplines don't exist in reality. They don't exist. They only exist in your minds, because we have been taught that. You know, you as a person, Yusrita is my elder sister. She's a person, and as an elder person, she has a mind, she has a language, she has a history, she has relationships, she does things. She is a complete person. Notice what happens. A linguist only studies her language. A psychologist only studies her mind. A cultural studies person only studies the culture. Economics only study her money. Huh? A biologist, a medic doctor only studies her physical body. Huh? Wait a second. She is one person. How can you divide her up? Every time you divide, you create oppression. That is why the nature of our research is oppressive. And that is why I consistently recommend we need to shift. We need to shift. They won't do it for us. We need to do it for ourselves. I keep writing this. This is our joint battle for independence. We have never become independent. The fake independence that was given to us in a sense of a nation state has failed us. Our populations are getting poorer. People are more oppressed. Some people you would know even imagine that I wish my colonials came back. Why do they think that? Because of the oppression today. Things are worse because we were never given independence. Independence means, we don't even know what an independent human being is, because in most of our experience in life, we have never actually met a human being who is free and independent. We haven't, because we are born unfree. We are born slaves to the system. If you meet people like like Cowboy Dale, whose poem I shared with you, his words I shared with you through my poetry. Cowboy Dale, he is a free man. He's an independent man. And when you meet an independent man, you will realize that they are the most honest people in the world, because they have self-respect. They don't hurt or do anything wrong because they have self-respect. That's what independence gives us, self-respect. And notice us, whether as individuals or nations or institutions, we have lost our self-respect. We need to regain our self-respect, and self-respect comes through doing, taking action, not talking, especially not talking about books that somebody else wrote in some other part of the world. If you need to look at the books from our own region. And guess what? We don't have them anymore. Our parts of the world had their own writing systems, their own indigenous histories and knowledge and wisdoms, which were also written down in the indigenous scripts. We have lost all of it because we are running after something which is not ours. Notice, we're creating knowledge that we become trapped. And this trap is oppressing us. So to rise above this thing, we have to stop the windmill. All of us together, slow it down. If your work is slow it down so that it slows down, so that we can then fix it and then release it so that we can all live a better life. Yes, we want publications, but we want the right kind of publication. Yes, we want knowledge, but we want knowledge that helps us. So that's how I would respond to that question, really, is that we are not doing it right. Just look at the journals. You do it yourself. Just look at the top journals in your own discipline. How many papers published in the last year have something practical to offer? And if they don't have practical things to offer, why are we reading them? And why do we want to write for them? It's our time. We can spend the same time doing something else. If we spend the same time building and repairing, the houses and the bridges and the roads in our area, people will be happier and we will have prosperity. It's the same time. We really have to reflect from our indigenous perspectives. Think in your own boli, whatever your boli is. Think in your own boli, and then you will not be fooled by them. You will realize there is no past, present, and future. In my boli, there is only present. There is no other tense. It's only present. Always, I'm always present. To do past or future, I have to mark it grammatically. Why? Because my boli is giving me wisdom. I diffuse my wisdom and I start learning present, past, future. And by learning that, I'm lost. My whole understanding and engagement with the world changes. Anyway, thank you so much for the question and comment.
Thank you, Prof. Ahmad. Yeah, it's clear for us about the different perspective from Professor Ahmad Mahbub. Well, okay, is there any question or comment? I would like to ask you to go to for the second section of the question session. So if you want to have the question, you can raise your hand. Any question? and also directly straight away to give a question to the speakers.
We can use a bahasa if you want to ask directly to the speakers. Boleh pakai bahasa Indonesia kalau mau langsung, Bu Temi?
Ya, boleh silakan.
Mungkin ada dari yang mau bertanya directly.
Excuse me, Bu Temi, can I ask question?
Yes, of course.
Silakan, Bu.
Okay, my question goes to Professor Setiono. My article has been rejected several times.
Oh dear, sorry to hear that, Mr. Hendra.
Even there was also one article accepted in Scopus Index that will be okay also. My question to Professor Setiono, what should we do when our article is rejected? Because a lot of comments from the reviewer, what we have to do first? A lot of comment. You have to do this. You should write like this. Thank you. That is my question.
Very good questions, Pak, Mr. Hendra. Thank you.
Yeah, Professor Setiono, would you give answer for this question, please?
Yeah, thank you, Pak Hendra. Reviewers, this is actually valuable experience. Okay, reviewers reject the journals for varying reasons. Okay, no, because I also experienced the same things like you, Pak Hendra. I got rejected several times as well. But they rejected the articles and they provided reasons, right? Because maybe our articles does not accord with the scope and the goal of the journal, okay? And or because our articles do not meet the expectations of the journals, right? That's possible reasons for rejecting the articles. Now, of course, this is not always the case that our article is bad. Okay, our article is bad. Now, let me share my experience. When I first submitted an article to Applied Linguistics around 4 to 5 years ago, Pak Hendra, I got rejected by the reviewer, and one of the interesting comments is that the article is very complex. The structures are very complex, making the readers not easy to digest the content of the article. Okay. Now the structures are very complex. The syntax is also very complex. So another comment is that the substance, and the substance is a very in depth, so that making the readers unable to digest the ideas that I offer. Now, of course, rejection is also always subjective. Reviewers is always subjective. These are not only inexperienced writers who often got rejected. Even experienced writers also got rejected. Okay, I wrote an article that soon will be published in a certain journals, and the title of the article is that the the idea is that resisting the inequalities in global academic publishing towards a politics of locality. Now, for me, if one article gets rejected from a certain journals, I learned the comments from the reviewers, and maybe the journal is not suitable to our article is not suitable to our journals. Learn the comments from the reviewers, learns the feedback from the reviewers, and if the feedbacks are useful, if the feedbacks are relevant, then of course we can revise our article and submit it to other journals. That is what I experienced. So rejections doesn't mean that our article is bad, Pak Hendra. Okay, that's the tips that I can share with you.
Thank you, Prof. Setiono, for your answer.
Don't get discouraged, Pak. So
Yeah.
this is very normal. This is very normal.
It is not the end of the world.
Well,
the end of the world.
yes. Several times have been rejected, but there are also some articles have been accepted. Actually, I am one of the reviewer in Journal of Lingua Didaktika, University of Negeri Padang. But
okay,
the article reviewer can be rejected also. That is what I learned.
Okay. Now there is maybe I forget one. Let me now share one experience from a very scholar, a Chinese scholar who attempted to publish in the mainstream journal, and her article got rejected. Not because the ideas are bad, not because the insights are bad, but because there is a sort of resistance. There is a sort of resistance to the conventions of academic writing. The reviewers expect that this scholar fully conform the conventions of academic writing. But the scholar simply did not really conform to the academic conventions because she wanted to preserve her own identity. This is the way I write. This is the way I write. Okay, Ryoko Kubota, for example, if you read an article by Ryoko Kubota, for instance, published in Applied Linguistics, even scholars like world-class scholars like Ryoko Kubota got rejected, right? Because their sort of Ryoko Kubota calls this their sort of discriminations against scholars, particularly coming from the periphery. And the last example is from one of the well-known word scholars, Native American, who has written hundreds of books and even hundreds of articles, even got rejected. Ironically, this well-known scholars, this renowned scholars, got rejected not because of the substance, but because of because of her simple grammar, simple structures.
Oh my God!
Right. So yeah, that's, I think it's not the end of the world like Bu Yusrita. There are of course lessons learned that we can obtain from our experience in facing rejections. That's it. Thank you, Ibu.
Okay.
Thank you, Prof. Setiono. I hope I can send one article to your journal and Bu Yusrita journal. Thank you, Bu Temi. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Hendra.
Okay, we are so happy. Pak Hendra, please.
Ya,
We are
Bu
waiting.
Temi, ini ada pertanyaan dari there are question from Amir Ali. I look in the chat.
Yes.
The question is Imran, What
yeah.
about the literature review? We should include in introduction. I try to answer the question. Of course, Pak Amir Ali, IMRAD consists of introduction, method, research and discussion, right? So of course we need to put a literature review in introduction, because I said that first we need to intro to the reader, to the researcher, what we do about our research. After that, we need to write what the problem statement of our research. The next step is we need to put some of researchers, some of previous literature about the similar research. And then after that, we need to conclude that about the state of the art, our research, or theoretical depth, our research. So that's why we need to put literature review in introduction. Without literature review in introduction, I think we cannot say the introduction in article. That in introduction. And the next question in chat is how to get information about the acceptance rate of the article in the journal. This is very simple. Please write in the Google. Type in Finder Journal in Google. So after that, you need to put title, type also keyword, and then abstract of the article, and then will appear in the new windows some of the article that content is acceptance rate of the article if we submit in suitable with our article. Which one suitable is our capability, for example, like that. I think that's all. Thank you.
Can I ask Miss Temi?
Okay, please. Thank you, Pak Hendra. Please, Ibu Reni, you can ask the question and deliver to the question goes to what speaker do you want? Yeah.
This one I propose to Prof. Hendra, based of your suggestion before that we have to know what's the area journal that we want to submit. My question, beside the journal quality and the scope area, what is the most probably to publish if the object, the article, is tourism sector with any marketing variable? Is there marketing journal or tourism journal? What, based of your experience, what is the most probably to publish? Marketing journal or tourism journal background? Thank you.
Okay, I try to answer directly. We need to find. You can use the Simago Journal ranking first. Type in Google Simago Journal ranking.
Okay.
And then enter, and then you choose the first column in the left windows. Put about the tourism sector or marketing so far, for example, like that, and then choose all of the country, for example, like that, and then all country, all region, for example, and then searching, and then you can find some good journal from this portal, I think.
Okay, so in your experience, what is the most probably to publish? You think
because our field is different, right? If your field the same with me, I can say like that. Composite part B is very most journal, because the high impact and Q1 journal, for example, like that. But in tourism sector, I don't know. But if you choose, if you type in tourism sector as a keyword,
Okay.
You can choose start from Q1, of course, good journal, and then the state is Q2, still good journal also, until Q3, I think, is a good journal. Yeah, this type keyword tourism sector and marketing.
Okay.
And then choose Q1 or Q2 maybe.
Okay. Okay.
And don't choose IPB, right? India, Pakistan, Bangladesh.
Bangladesh.
Yeah,
Right.
India, Pakistan, Bangladesh.
Oh.
I think that's all.
Okay. Even that's the Q1 or Q2?
Yeah, Q1, Q2. Yeah.
Okay.
Try to
Another country.
yeah, try to another country, because
Okay.
if we choose the three country, very difficult to clarify, because
Yeah.
the mind of the reviewer said, is the journal published from IPB, say like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Try
Okay.
another country.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you,
Yeah.
Prof. Thank you, Bu Emi.
Okay, thank you, Bu Reni. Thank you, Prof. Hendra. Well, we still have 5 minutes left. So there will be more 2 questions, opportunities for the participant asking the question. I see here Pak
Pak Hanafi from Unan, I think, Bu Temi.
Pak Hanafi from Unan
Yes.
raised hand in the Zoom. So please, Pak Hanafi.
Thank you, Bu Temi. Thank you, Bu Yusrita. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. It's been a great pleasure to follow this seminar, and and also thank you for all the presenter. I would like to actually a bit comment, but also ask question to Pak Amar Mahbub, actually Professor Mahbub, that concerning his standpoints on this journal publication. It seems to me that Prof. Mahbub is doing a deconstructionist perspective or approach to the as well-established journal publication that has been going on so far. And I think in one way that is actually justifiable, because so far the pure intention of this publication, which is supposed to be distributing knowledge, has been hindered so much by many obstructions due to many types of interests, starting from economic and politics and etc. So this actually prevent people from publishing it, because they have to comply to many rules and restrictions, and also it is hindered also by the social what do you call it? Not social, the economic, especially the economic interest of these journal provider, and it's just like Elsevier and many more, because people have to submit it freely, submit their journal article freely, and then other people, readers, have to pay to access it, and they actually sell it. And this is actually the real concern for most academicians nowadays. And some of them already make like open journal communities. And I don't know if, I think, I don't know, I assume Prof. Mahbub is actually involving in that kind of community as well, who is supporting open access journal publication instead of subscribe and paid publication. What I'm trying to ask is that, what does Prof. Mahbub says about this? I would like to know about his opinion about breaking this what do you call that, these capitalism in journal publication and with these open access communities. Because that's one. And then number two, I would like to comment on the publication. Actually, the one thing that I actually see from many of our colleagues in Indonesia is that we lack of tools to what do you call that, to engage in this war. Let's say this academic war. Publication is academic war. We need to have a good tool. We need to have a good weapon. The weapon is the language itself, our ability to express our ideas, our abilities to to what do you call that, to maintain our argument and to defend our argument. This is actually what we lack of, especially in writing. And that's number one. Now, before we have the tools, we also need to have a strong, well, not strong, but a good habit of academic life. Actually, what I can see in most of our research tradition, especially in Indonesia, that we pay attention less to the importance of academic review, especially a review of previous studies. We actually just do this less than before. That's why our engagement to the global community, as indicated by Prof. Sutiono, is lack, because we cannot engage ourselves into a global discussion. Why are we, why we are lack of that? Because we again, it come back into the tools. We lack of the ability to read and understand, and then we lack of the ability to develop our arguments. And sometimes our argument is also repetitive. That's why most publication, which is actually offered to the journal, to the academic journal, is rejected or asked to be reviewed again or to be edited again because of that. So it's not only because we do not have, we may have ideas, but sometimes our idea is not linked to the previous research. This is actually the most fundamental aspect. And actually, for me personally, investing much more time and energy in observing or getting all the related literatures, especially the current one, about our topic, is really fundamental and is the most important procedure before actually doing, before writing our research. And sometimes this is actually what not has been done. So I don't know, does that actually confirm to the experience of Prof. Setiono and Prof. Hendra actually for that? Maybe I would need to ask their confirmation for that. Thank you so much, Bu Temi.
Thank you. That's there's a lot of things that can be commented on in your question. And there are many different ways in which we can respond to it. Charging people for access to education is of any kind is problematic. And so, of course, that is there. We have to understand before that, why does education of the kind that we experience in our lives exists? Why does it exist? Why do we have the kind of education we get where we have to study and publish these sort of things? What's the reason why we have them? And why is it that we are creating the kind of knowledge that the rules of that knowledge creation is controlled by somebody else, not us? The goals of that knowledge making are controlled and directed by somebody else, not us. So when the language of that knowledge making, the categories that are used in that language for knowledge making are managed and controlled by somebody else, not us. So when we see that we don't have any of these controls, our ability to manage or participate in the management or the governance of these knowledge production machines or industry of knowledge production, because it is an industry, as you have noticed, then we are not the producers, we are not the managers, we are not doing it. So what are we? Who are we in this whole game? We, as you have already pointed out, are the clients, whether we are the authors or the readers. Now, as you've noticed, it's Krashin and some of our other colleagues keep talking about reading helps for writing. Yes, I don't disagree. How can you disagree with that? Practice makes perfect, understood.
Yes.
Right? There is no need for saying it 100,000 different times in 100,000 different papers. We get it. Practice makes perfect. Actually, that means writing makes writing better, not just reading. It's the more you write, the better your writing gets, because it's practice that makes it better. If you read more, your reading gets better. Simply being able to read doesn't make you a good writer. To learn how to write, you have to write. Practice makes you better. So yes, all these things, notice how these things are confused in terminologies and packaged through research papers, confuses us. As you said, we don't know what to read for. So we are blinded by this terminology and we get confused by the concepts, and we don't have those concepts in our native languages. So we have to figure out what these terms and concepts mean. And we have to figure it out, and then we have to work in our own context and then convert that into this knowledge that is not ours. Gosh, that somebody said this knowledge production is a gatekeeper. It's a gatekeeper. It's not just journal publishing, it's knowledge production which is gatekeeping. That's why it's not just journals that you publish, it has to be ranked ones, right? Why ranked? Q1, Q2, what is this ranking? Who gets Q1? Who gets Q2? What is the basis? Who's setting this category? Are we setting this criteria? Are we saying what Q1 is for us? No. We're taking somebody else's definition. We're taking other people's criteria, their criteria for their purposes, for their goals, not ours. Remember, sorting can happen in many ways. Every time you sort a different way. We can do other rankings for ourselves, for our purposes, our development purposes. As I keep saying, what's the point of ranking these things when our groundwater is not clean to drink? When you cannot open the tap and drink from a tap at your home, what are we doing? What is the point of all this knowledge production? That's what I'm talking about. When our cities are sinking, Jakarta is sinking, our cities are sinking. Our nature is dying and we are cutting more forests. Our ancestors would never dream of that. For our ancestors, the well-being of every creature on our land is our responsibility. That is our ancestral duty, to manage and make care of everything around us. But look at us, their children. What is happening to what are we doing in our guard? It's our time to guard. What are we doing? We are sleeping, not just sleeping. We are blind worshiping the very people who subjugated us. Blind worshiping, not even questioning what we are doing. Stop, we need to stop. That's why I started with the poem, retreating into the woods. Take a step back, listen, learn, and then unlearn. We need to do that, go through that process. Each one of us individually has to. Because if we don't stop and take a step back and retreat, just for a minute, take a retreat, stop what we're doing, stop what we're doing. Remember, the windmill, you cannot fix it unless you slowly stop it. That's when you fix it. Stop what we are doing, slowly, stop what we are doing, reconsider, redirect ourselves, focus on our goals. Our goal is never our individual success. Even if we beg $1 million, if we live in a city with unclean water, it's still a city with unclean water. Your money doesn't make you rich. There is a difference between what our ancestors considered. Our ancestors thought of prosperity, not rich. Rich is measured by money. Prosperity is measured by well-being. Tell us, how prosperous are we? How much well-being do you see in our societies and communities? If we don't have it, then we have lost what we had. What have we gained in reserve? Oppression. This writing process that we have been talking about this morning, it's oppressive. I want us to come out of that oppression, do things and then write about it. I'm not saying that writing is not important, sharing is not important, but then you don't have to worry about how you connect your theory to a global theory. You don't need to. You can talk about how you've used your local languages and visuals and metaphors of taste and smell and things to create a multi-sensory signage to influence behavioral change in your community so that people drive safely. And those signs are then used and put on the boards. I will share with you an example after I finish on the chat, an example of a sign I took a picture of yesterday, just about 3 kilometers from where I am right now. I'll send it to you. It's a drawing of a school child. It's a drawing of a school child which is about environment and protecting environment. And the government took the school child pointing from some 10-year-old kid and made a big sign, so that everybody can look at what the girl is saying. The little girl or little boy, that child is teaching us. Let's learn from them. Children are wiser than adults sometimes because they always live in the present. They know what's present. We don't live in the present, we live in futures. How many of you knew, how all of us knew that we would be stuck in COVID this year? Did any of us imagine our lives last year? No. We were dreaming, living in futures. living in non-presence. Live in the present, fix that problem. Then you can write a paper about how you can create signage, how do you design signage that can influence people's behavior and reduce the accidents in the area. That saves lives. That's real things. You write that. Guess what? You don't have to connect it to a theory. Any place, anywhere in the world, people are having the trouble, they will find your example. And they will learn from your example, and they will create science in this area, their area. Your work has helped other people's lives. Can writing a paper about second language acquisition, can that change lives? What do we are? Remember, who is a teacher? In our faith, in our belief systems, so who is a teacher? Teachers are prophets. Prophets are teachers. Our job primarily is teachers. We research as part of our teaching. It's a secondary thing. We are teachers. As teachers, we have, our job is a very serious job. It's a commitment. It's not something we do for money. The prophets do not go for money or greed. Their goal is not to have their ego satisfied or gain a lot of money or prestige. No. It's teaches for the people, okay, not for the benefits. Then think about these things, right? And that addresses your question of capitalism, right? Money is an infinite category. Forget that. Anything that is infinite, anything that has an infinite category, money, knowledge, power, these things are not goals. These are resources. Goals are the finite, the people around you, the life around you, the environment around you. Those are finite. Those are your goals. Protect them, enjoy them, cherish them. Other things are immaterial, non-material, they are infinite. You can never achieve all the knowledge there is. It's a setting up a goal for yourself where you are going to fail. Why? Because infinite is endless. Why are we writing papers for the construction of knowledge? We want to create new knowledge. Gosh, do you notice what's happening? When we say we want to create new knowledge, what are we saying? Yes. That our goal is the infinite.
Okay, thank you, Professor.
Thank you. Yeah, sure. Thank you. It's a long chat. Sorry, I'll stop it.
Perspective, very interesting. We still need to continue it.
Prof. Mahbub is really radical in his approach. I love it, but yeah.
Limited time. Yeah. Probably a quick response from Pak Hendra or Pak Prof. Sugiono. A quick response.
Yeah, I think that's enough. But I want, in view of capitalism, yeah, I mean this related with article processing fee. If we submit our article to the journal, for example, like that, I think we have some choice to choose which one the journal, because I know that some of journal we can submit, and if we article accepted, we not need to pay from the article processing fee, because the article processing fee covered by institution, for example, like that. So we need to state which one which one the best article. As my experience, if I submit my article in Q1 journal, I am not pay the article processing fee. For example, some of the article in the publisher accept here like that. I think that's all. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Prof. Hendra. Professor No, would you give some quick response?
Yeah, thank you for the questions. My point of view is like this. Since knowledge constructions and knowledge production is undoubtedly dominated by the Western, from knowledge constructions and productions is still dominated by the global north, that is from the Western world, then we cannot totally impose our perspectives. We cannot totally impose 100% our perspective to this knowledge production and construction. But what we can do is to strategically appropriate this knowledge in light of course, our local knowledge, our own locality. There's, I think, strategic negotiation and strategic appropriation. I think but I disagree. What I disagree is that the claim of totality of knowledge, the claim of totality of the totalitarian totality of knowledge. That is what I disagree. But in the context of academic journal publications, we need to devise a sort of strategies that can help us appropriate the global perspectives and the global relevance. That's it. Thank you.
There should be some room for negotiation, yes, Prof. Setiano.
Negotiations and appropriation. We cannot totally resist
At
knowledge.
the moment, yeah, at the moment. For Mahbub is doing really radical rebellions, against this.
Yes,
Very hot discussion. I like it.
I partially agree. We can resist, of course. We can resist, but again, we need to resist it strategically. That's my point.
Okay.
Wonderful discussion, Prof. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Setiano. Well, I think we still need more some interesting ideas from all the participants, but because of the limitation of the time, I want to read one more comment from the chat room here. From Elaine Rose Nakon from Philippines. Can the speakers recommend reputable research journal with lower rejection that is
Q3
by the end of 2010?
Q3, Q4.
And the time to publication is very short, or something like that. Yeah.
Please answer, Prof.
I cannot answer directly, but please find the please use the Finder Journal in type in Finder Journal in Google, and then put the keyword, put the title, and please choose which one. Some of journal have the acceptance rate, minimum, maximum, for example, like that. There are 3 week acceptable, for example, like that. And I can recommend it, but please choose selective, and you can submit the article there. I think that's all.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Prof. Hendra. Well, ladies and gentlemen, well, Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin, we come to the end of this webinar. Yeah, I would like, on behalf of the committee, English Department, Faculty of Humanities, Universitas Bunghatta, we would like to say thanks again for all the presenters, Professor Ahmad Mahbub, Professor Setiano, Professor Hendra Suherman, for the informative and interesting talk, and also to the audience for your active participation. At the end of the webinar, very hot discussion. So I think, maybe we need another more webinar to continue this discussion. Okay.
We will see next webinar. We will have a new topic and hot topic yet to be discussed. Oh, okay. See you next. Inshallah.
The presentation will be beneficial for everybody, for all of us. We learn many things from these three presenters. Yeah, and then thank you for your attention and good afternoon. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much for all the presenters.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Ahmad, Prof. Setiano, Prof. Hendra, and then also for all the participants from Pakistan, Indrapura, Aceh, Philippines, Australia, semuanya dari Indonesia, Jakarta, Pekanbaru, semua ya. Alhamdulillah kita selesai webinarnya dengan diskusi yang hangat ya. Alhamdulillah, mudah-mudahan nanti akan ada lagi webinar selanjutnya yang lebih bermanfaat buat kita semua. Terima kasih, mohon maaf kalau ada hal yang tidak berkenan. Kami tunggu untuk tulisannya di CULINGUA Jurnal ya, untuk terbitan Januari. Alhamdulillah, makasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Ya, oke. Pak Dekan masih di jalan?
Pak Dekan, hati-hati. Ya, salam untuk Bu Irma, salam duka dari kami semua.
Ya, salam. Semoga almarhumah husnul khotimah. Ya Pak D. Kita selesai.
Ya, saya end roomnya sekarang.
Iya, Anissa sudah dicatat semuanya, nak?
Anissa, did you
Sudah,
already save the message, the chat?
Yes, ma'am.
The chat save?
Yes.
You cannot save chat. I don't know why.
Yeah,
Perhaps,
I don't know. So there is no sign here as
yeah.
well.
Why? Why is that so? Usually we can save the chats. So for documentation and then for evaluation, right?
Yeah.
Anissa, how about you? Can you save the chats?
No, ma'am.
No.
Oh, probably Nisa. I think you need to just to picture it from on the top until at the bottom. Yeah.
Before we end.
Before we end it.
Before we end, please screenshot. And then this is for a documentation for us.
Yeah.
Pak Agung, very nice to meet you again, Pak Agung. Ibu Wiwi, Bu Ineng masih di sini ya. Pak Aprianto, Bu Musda, siapa lagi? Pak Purwanto, Pak Agung.
Ya.
Oke, semua terima kasih.
Banyak.
Mudah-mudahan nanti kita ada acara lagi yang bisa di-share ya. Oke, Nisa.
Yeah, ma'am.
Can you do it? We will end.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
Already done?
Wait, ma'am.
Okay.
Pak Budi, thank you for accompany us as well.
Hey, where is Pak Budi? Pak Budi, I mentioned your name previously. Thank you so much.
It seems that you are in the office, overseas office.
Already, ma'am.
Already. Okay, thank you, Nisa. Yes. Okay, Bu Temi, already. So we will end the meeting.
Yes, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye-bye, everyone. See you. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, success and stay healthy.
Pak Dekan,
Pak Dekan, you want to say something for us, Pak Dekan?
Yes.
Yeah, do you want to say something?
It's a very good conference. It's very good conference. Okay, so we need to do the conference next time, right? Because from this, we can learn many things: how to publish the article, how to find the journal for this one. Very great, right? Thank you and good luck, everybody.
Okay, thank you so much. You're welcome. Yeah, we are waiting for the next international webinar or national webinar. Yeah, okay. Bye.
You hope so. Okay.
Yes, thank you for your support. Yes. Okay, bye-bye Bu Temi. Thank you ya for you as a moderator. Bu Rina, thank you. And also Dedi, where are you Dedi? As a master ceremony, yeah. Thank you so much.
Anissa juga.
All of the team and all of the committee, yeah. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ya, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Emi.
Ya.
Emi udah datang.
Oh ya.
Okay, we leave now. Yes.
Ya, ini jawaban mahasiswa nih. Terima kasih. Salam kembali. Ada beberapa alumni dari kita
ya
yang ikut. Adil, Dini, dan semuanya ya. Ria juga. Ya, mudah-mudahan nanti suatu saat kita bisa temu darat. Sekarang temunya virtual dulu. Ya. Udah ya? Kita end with them? Okay. I think so. Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Yeah. You may end.
I end ya?
Yeah.